Hello and welcome again to another episode of One Starfish, where our mission is to change the world one starfish or one person at a time. As always, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, all of the things. We're really grateful and excited for our guest today. Welcome to the show, Mitchell.
Hey, Angela, appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on, and look forward to this. And hopefully, I can drop some gold nuggets for your audience to take away.
Awesome. So a little bit about Mitchell, and then we'll dive in. Came from a really dark place. It went into fitness, where he learned some discipline. So we'll touch on that. And then in 2019, he had a baby girl. Decided he wanted some freedom of time. Opened a roofing company. In the first year, was in top 1% in his area for roofing, which is huge. That's awesome. And now, 50% of his business comes from referrals, 50% of his income, if I get it right, comes from referrals, just creating an amazing customer experience. So let's go back to the dark path and where that kind of started, and how did you, what started you into the fitness? Was it someone, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so obviously, as everybody probably knows, you go into high school, you get peer pressure, you're around certain friend groups, and got into the whole drinking phase, and that's what I did every weekend. Still was an A honor roll student, but I still enjoyed obviously having fun with friends. But I just was super lazy, and I think towards the end of senior year, my dad was kind of getting tired of this kind of complacency mindset, right? So my dad has always been working out his whole life since he was 15. So he'd been working out for 30, 40 years at this point. And he was a power lifter in the 80s and 90s. And so when he turned 50, which I was a senior, he wanted to get back into powerlifting. And so he did a competition, enjoyed it. And I was working out off and on, work out for 2 weeks, expecting to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, get discouraged, quit, the whole repetitive cycle, right?
Okay.
So at the end of senior year, I was going through a breakup, and I was kind of in this depressive state. You think this person's going to be your love of your life, and you're devastated, right? So that's where I was in that state of mind. And so my dad was like, "Hey, you should come work out with me. Let's train for this powerlifting meet. You kind of know the movements. It's squat, bench, deadlift. But let's train for it. It's 8 months away. We got some time. It allows us to, bond and all this." So I was like, "Sure, why not? Got nothing to lose." Anyway, so my dad got me into this industry. We did this powerlifting meet at 8 months. And in 8 months' time, not only did my body look different, right? So the confidence grew, but it was the mental aspect. Andy talks about with 75 hard, the fortitude that you build, right? Well, in this moment, I was working out 6 days a week for 2 hours at a time, let alone beforehand, I would work out for 30 minutes for maybe 2 to 3 times a week. So it's just a drastic change. And when I looked up, I realized what I had done. I had broken world records. I won at Worlds. All this stuff happened in a year, just being focused on one thing for an extended period of time, which I had never done in my life. So my dad is what got me into fitness, and the fitness industry is what really created this whole discipline aspect where, as we know, the more disciplined you are, it's a superpower that over time, you're going to create the results you want. You know what I mean?
That's so good. So what are some things, so taking it out of even the fitness industry and into everything, discipline is very important. I love that. I love that conversation. So what are some things that help? A lot of people want to be disciplined, but they're not. So what are some things that could help someone become disciplined in whatever area they want to become disciplined in? What do you think on that?
Great question. So whenever I was a trainer, you have people from all walks of life coming in, right? They worked out in high school, they stopped working out, or you have people who just never worked out in their whole life and they want to get into it, right? So the whole thing that I did was, let's start with something super small. Most people, when they get into, say, fitness or health lifestyle, they want to jump right in, right? They want to eat healthy. They want to start working out 3 to 5 days a week. They want to drink all this water, and they're super sore by the end of week 1, and they're like, I can't do this. So in order to not self-sabotage, what I ended up doing was, hey, before we even go into the gym, let's just go for a 30-minute walk every day in the morning. And at this point, it's kind of like a reflective time. You're getting up, you're moving your body. Let's do that for 2 weeks. If we can do that for 2 weeks, great. Let's check it off the list. The next thing was, okay, let's drink maybe 2 to 3 glasses more of water because most people are always dehydrated. Let's do that for 2 weeks. All right, I don't want you to change any of your eating in that 4-week period. You're just focused on the walking, you're focused on the water. And then at that point, then let's start to add some maybe healthier vegetables or lean proteins or things like that. So the way I can always have people become more disciplined is adding small things. And then once you can actually accomplish that over a 2-week period, then you want to add maybe something else versus trying to just jump in right away, because all you're doing is just self-sabotaging. And think about this, like Ed talks about, the way you build self-confidence is the promises you make to yourself and you keep. Well, if you consistently always try to say you're going to do something and you never do it, not only is your confidence going away, but that discipline muscle is just deteriorating over time. If that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. I love that. So just adding little things. So like if you're listening, maybe fitness isn't your thing. Maybe you've got that one mastered, but you're wanting to run a business or you're wanting to do some of that kind of stuff. Making like one call a day or making, one new prospect a day or asking for one referral a day or something, just like one a day, as opposed to trying to do everything all at once. I think it's a huge tip for a lot of people. And hopefully, someone takes that and runs with it. So then you went into fitness for 10 years. So you were a personal trainer. Or where did you go with the fitness line?
Yeah, so I got into the fitness industry because I was in college, had no idea what I wanted to do. Literally nothing. I'm sure most people listening to this, that's how they felt. I'm going in because that's just what you're supposed to do. I was 1 credit away from graduating, and I just decided not to do it. And I went the fitness route because I was like, this is what I want to do. So I got certified, did everything. I went straight to a studio where, a big box gym might have a lot of traffic where they come in, you could sell people and obviously train them. I didn't have that. I was in a studio that wasn't on a main street. It was kind of tucked away, not a lot of foot traffic, if any at all. So the way I built my business was I just marketed on Facebook. I said, hey guys, started in the fitness industry, would love to train you for a whole month for free. And I'm going to take, say, 6 people. So I had 6 people, train them 3 times a week at the same time. Got to think about this. I'm investing my time, my energy, my gas, all this stuff just to give somebody a result.
Right.
Because my thought was, if they're not willing to pay me right now, but I get them a result, eventually at the end, they're going to be like, Mitch, I have to at least pay you or refer you or something because you've been amazing.
Right.
So that's how I got into the fitness industry. It was kind of a tougher road, but at the end of the day, I really take pride in that because, it was the harder route, like, anybody talks about. The path of least travel, right? And then over time, I built that to about 50 clients over a, say, 3 to 4 year period where they just consistently always wanted to work with me. Never had a contract. They could leave at any time. But I think that's where you're creating that experience for somebody, not only the results, but it's like, man, I really like to be around this guy, this energy that he gives off. So that's kind of how I got into this industry.
That's so good. And I think it's about the experience and then also embracing the hard, I guess. So yeah. A lot of people want to look for the easy way, but instead the hard part kind of excited you. Has that been always how you've been, or was that something that you developed through the fitness journey, you feel?
I would say it had to be from the fitness journey because I remember all the time growing up. I mean, most kids I imagine are lazy. They want to take the easy route, right? I think we're just geared that way. But when it came to the fitness side of my life, I just realized when I did powerlifting, all that hard training, the blood, the sweat, the tears, everything like that, my body breaking down to get the result I wanted, it was a good correlation to me mentally. It's like, okay, if I'm willing to put in the effort and the time to get the result, and not short-term gratification, but long-term, the results came. So I just, in the back of my mind, I always knew if I'm willing to do what most aren't, I'm going to get what most probably won't ever get. If that makes sense.
100% makes sense. And they did that for 10 years. I had a baby girl. So obviously, I see you're married, you have a baby girl. You're like, I don't want to work all the time. There's a lot of clients. You're at the gym a lot, I'm guessing. And so you decided to open a roofing company. Where did that transition? Why roofing? Tell us a little bit about that.
Great question. So I was on paternity leave with where I work, and I knew I was good at sales. So I was selling personal training. At the end of the day, like, you're selling clients all the time to consistently do what you're asking them to do, right? So I realized I'm good at sales. I'm good at customer service. So I looked when I was on paternity, looked for sales jobs. Roofing kept coming up because I live in the DFW area. It's like the mecca for hail. And I interviewed with one particular company, which small world, my mother-in-law actually sold one of the owners a home who moved here from Colorado. So it just kind of worked out where that's the only company I went to. And obviously I had kind of an in. So I went there and I went part-time from September to November. And I was just working Saturdays. And I realized I could not make this work if I was going to do this full-time. So I needed to cut off what I was doing with the training. So I cut off training. I went full-time November of 2019. And what happened March 2020? COVID. So I'm literally going door to door, new to the industry, and I've got people who are definitely afraid of even opening the door. And at that point, generating, six figures, new to the industry, no idea what I'm doing. But I think I took the discipline from fitness, the constant, the knocking on the doors, the getting the no's, the rejection, knowing eventually I'm going to get somebody who needs my service, if that makes sense.
Touch a little bit on that, because I know we've got a lot of entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs or starting entrepreneurs that are out there. And the perceived rejection is what takes a lot of people out of the game of whatever it is that they're doing. And pretty much everything is sales. So, when you were knocking on door to door, you would have gotten a lot of rejection for sure. What were some of the numbers you ran to be able to make that work? And, how did you pick yourself up at the end of the day when it was really tough? Like, were there some tips that helped, or like meditation or working out, or, what were some things that kept your mindset good while you kept getting a lot of rejection? And how much did you get? Like, how many doors were you knocking on to get a yes?
Yeah. So as far as how many doors, I mean, there's some people who don't answer, right? I would say it would probably take me 4 to 5 no's before I got a yes. But I'm also probably knocking doors where people are answering. So the beginning, I was probably knocking, I don't know, 40, 50 doors a day to maybe get that 1, maybe 2 yeses to get on the roof. But the whole thing that pushed me and pulled me, I wouldn't say pushed me, it was more of a pull, was the end result was I want to create a great life for my family. And this is just short term, whatever I'm going through is short term, right? Tomorrow's another day. But what I also was focused on was anytime somebody said no to me, I was actually getting paid for every no I was getting. Meaning, let's say I make $5,000 per sale, because that's the average commission in roofing where I work. So let's say I get 9 no's. I'm really making $500 per no. And that 10th person that says yes, that's when I make the money or I help that person. But all the people beforehand, I'm getting paid. So in the back of my mind, every time somebody said no, it was just like, hey, that's totally cool. I'm closer to that one yes that's going to get me to the result. Yes, I make money, but it's more about helping this person, creating the ultimate experience where I know if I do such a great job, that person's going to refer me. And it got to the point where, yeah, I'm knocking on these doors, but I'm doing such a great job that I'm asking these people at the very beginning, no one told me to do this. Hey, if I do a great job, John, can I ask a favor of you? And when you ask a favor, somebody is probably going to say, yeah, what's going on? If I exceed your expectations on this entire thing, could you do me a favor? Could you tell somebody about this experience and how I was able to help you? Would you mind? Everybody says yes, especially when you exceed the expectations of construction, which is most contractors, they don't respond quickly. They take a lot of their time. They don't get back to you. Everything's messy, things like this, right? But if I could control that, because I could control all that, at the end of the day, I'm going to exceed their expectations. I know they're going to refer me to somebody based off the experience I provided. So that was the whole goal, was getting paid per no, but also knowing if I exceed their expectations, I know it's going to come back to me tenfold.
What is so much there? I'm like, where do I go with it? What, you're paying yourself the no's, and I love that. I've thought of that too lots. And you knew where it was going. How did you know where it was going? You came from fitness. You didn't come from that. How did you know? I find like a lot of people that are in starting their own business, one of the things, and obviously I don't feel you lack this, with lack of belief. And how can someone help build their own belief in themselves that like they're gonna win if they just do the work, as opposed to normally people think, man, maybe it's not for me, and they keep questioning it all the time, and therefore the more rejection they get, finally they do quit, and then it's not for them. and they make their own beliefs their self-fulfilling prophecy. Right. So what are some things that help build belief that you think, Mitchell?
I think what kept the belief alive was knowing what I can do.
Because of the fitness, because of what you've already achieved, like some of that.
All that stuff. My whole entire life was being lazy, and now I've created discipline now, and I can look back and see what I've done with my life. Not to say I'm great, but I could just see what I've done. It's a pattern, right? So I think for somebody who maybe doesn't have the belief, or they quit when things get hard, you have to take a look inside of yourself and say, am I willing to continue to do this forever? Am I willing to quit when things get hard? Am I that person? Because most people are going to tell themselves, I'm not that person, right? We want to believe that we're not that person, but it's the obstacles that allow us to really understand, are you really about what you're about? Are you really saying what you want is what you want? And anytime there was an obstacle that came in my way, I didn't look at it as an obstacle. I just looked at it as, okay, this is a way for me to overcome this certain obstacle, creating the skill set to get over the obstacle or under it or around it or whatever. So anytime that came up, it wasn't necessarily a negative thing to me. And I think it's more of a mindset shift of when something comes about where it's getting in my way of whatever it is I want, the money or the success or whatever the case is. Mm-hmm. You have to realize at the end of the day, why are you even doing this? Why are you knocking the doors or making the phone calls or starting the business? Why are you doing it? And for me, it was, I'm trying to create a great life for my family, but at the end of the day, I want my kid and my wife to look at me and say, you're really willing to do whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. And I want to be able to look in the mirror at the end of the day, knowing I gave it my all and knowing that what I say I'm going to do, I do it. And I think if you can make those promises to yourself, like Ed says, and consistently do it, over time, you build this belief where people are like, dude, how are you so confident? It's not that I'm super confident more than you. It's just that I've said I'm going to do something so many times and I've done it that now whenever I say I'm going to do something, even if I don't know how to do it, I know I'm going to figure out a way to do it.
That's so good. So yeah, thinking and it's deep too. You know, hey, are you that person that quits? And really looking back, like that would just, like, I know that could hit some people. You know, are you that person? And if you are, or you have been, you can change it. Now is the time. Like if you're feeling like quitting right now and you're listening to this, I don't know what, you know, listeners are going through, but if you're feeling like that, maybe now is the time to make that decision to do one more day. You know, we talk about Ed Milet and Andy Frisella. We're both in Arte, and you know, one more day, one more hour, one more person, one more door knock, one more phone call, whatever it is, one more power lift or whatever, like one more, and work through that until you can build that confidence. Because I think the biggest thing is some confidence, confidence in yourself. And so when you went from fitness to roofing, did you have a lot of people that like kind of want, like, what are you doing? Or did you have a lot of support? Or how was that for like associations and that kind of stuff?
Well, it wasn't the best support because my whole identity was fitness. I was in the fitness industry. I created a personal training gym with somebody. I lived and breathed it. I love training. And so when I decided to do that, people are like, dude, you're crazy. Like, what are you doing? Like, you already had this thing established. Why would you leave this thing that's established? It makes no sense. So most people didn't really believe in me. And the only person that believed in me were obviously my wife, and I want to say my brother. My dad was just like, what are you doing? Like, you could build this up to whatever, you could franchise it, all these things. Mm-hmm. But again, at the end of the day, people didn't know what I wanted. Only you know what you want and the vision that you have for your life. And I realized that that was going to be a dead end, and it was going to take so much time to scale to get to where I wanted to be. And I just, from the time I got into roofing, I met a few guys that I work with. I saw what they were doing, and I thought to myself, you guys are no special to me. You're no more special than me. And it's I don't know if it sounds bad, but I just know that I'm the best at what I do. And it's because of the reinforcement from whatever people tell you how good of a job you do with what you do. Mm-hmm. And I just knew that from training. I was like, this is no different with roofing. I know I'm going to be the best. I just need to learn it. And I know I can go out there and I can literally do what anybody's doing. I can go out and knock the doors and everything like that. And it's funny you talk about the last door or knocking one more door. I can't tell you how many times where I'm in my truck getting discouraged. I'm like, man, I'm getting all these no's. Everyone, I'm getting yelled at. The first day I was on the job, I got cussed at. Like the first door I knocked, I was like, this is going to be really interesting. Love the challenge. But I remember I was sitting in my truck and I called my wife and I said, hey, I think I'm going to come home. I'm just getting all these no's. And she's like, hey, just go knock one more door. You can get a deal. Okay. You just got to knock one more door. And it's so funny because in that moment, whenever I'm down on myself and I don't want to do it, that whole thing you talk about with Ed, knocking one more door, can't tell you how many times I've knocked it and a person's like, man, I've actually been wanting to get my roof replaced. And it's funny how those things work, where it's like the universe, God, whatever. It's rewarding you for the effort that you're putting in, willing to go the extra mile.
Amen.
And you get rewarded with this random act of God, everything like that, you know?
That's so true. I know I've done that where I'm like, all right, let's just make one more call. Okay, let's just go talk to one more person. And then, yeah, that's the person that's like said yes or whatever they said. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like every time almost. And so now I'm like excited. So I'm like, oh, I'm done. Oh, wait, no, let's make one more. Cause I know they're going to say yes. Like, it's kind of like, and then they don't. I'm like, all right, one more. Let's do one more. Like, I'm going to get that. Anyway, it gets exciting. So, it is. Yeah. Yeah. You got to make it a game. But so in that time, like, I really appreciate that. So you're sitting there in the truck, you're feeling really dejected. Things are down. You had someone in your bubble that thankfully was good enough to push you and not sympathize with you. Empathize, but not sympathize. Like, hey, I get it. That's rough, but go talk to one more person. You got this. What if someone feels like they don't have that person? Like, what are some suggestions? Because I think of like, you had a really supportive wife. Some people don't have a supportive spouse. Some people don't have a spouse. Some people don't, whatever, that they're dealing with some of that feeling you had. What would be some other things that they might be able to do to help them, or where could they find maybe some support? What are your thoughts on that?
It's a great question. I would say go into your workplace, wherever you work. There's going to be somebody who is the top person, right? So if you're in sales, which I'm assuming we're talking about sales because this is how you generate your revenue, go talk to the top person and just pick their brain. How did they get to the result they're at? And at that point, ask if they could be your accountability partner. Mm. Or if maybe it's not the top person, maybe it's somebody who's the same as you. Maybe somebody in the organization that you are drawn to energy-wise. Because regardless of where you work, there's somebody that you talk with, right? They're like, okay, I could go grab a beer with this person, right? Mm-hmm. Well, if they're the same as you and they have the same kind of mindset as far as what they want to achieve in life, just say, hey, dude, or hey, whoever, can you hold me accountable? I give you permission. Can you hold me accountable? These are the goals that I'm going after. Can you do me a favor? Can you just make sure that I'm on track and hold me accountable to this? And I can do the same thing for you too. We could be an accountability partner. This is what I had a lot of my clients do in training was I said, hey, look, I'm not with you every day of the week.
Right.
Maybe 2, 3, 4 times a week. That's an hour out of the day. But you've got 23 more hours by yourself. You need that accountability until you can build that discipline to create results on your own. And so they would partner up with maybe a friend or whoever they train with or their spouse or whoever. So those people, I would say, go find somebody in your organization, maybe a family member, but just ask to be that accountability partner for each other. And you're going to see results kind of skyrocket because you have somebody now that you're accountable towards. Mm-hmm. And also you can also maybe post on Facebook or social media. Hey guys, this is the goal I'm going after. Mm-hmm. And I think when you can profess what you want in public, you're back against the wall. Like, I got to do this. I don't want to look foolish because I'm not going to achieve this. Or I make this grand post and I'm going to start losing weight. And then I fall off and now I look kind of just dumb for posting this,
Right. So good. And when I did 75 hard, I posted every day. And that in and of itself, I'm like, I can't quit. Like, everyone's watching my whole freaking story. And I mean, I don't know if anyone's actually watching it, but I feel like the world's watching it. So I was like, man, I got to continue and finish it. So yeah, accountability is really good. And now you said when you transition, because like I said, these are just things that I hear a lot of people talk about. So I love diving into that. When you transition, you said your dad, which is someone really close to you, who changed your life, at a certain age, wasn't super supportive. How did you kind of handle that? Like, a lot of people are like, well, I know, someone doesn't believe in me, or not believe in me necessarily, but, they care about what someone, especially someone close like that, thinks. How did you handle that without, obviously I'm sure you and your dad are close friends. He's proud of you. all that kind of stuff. How did you kind of work through that? And what are some tips for someone that's like dealing with that, where their family's just maybe not, especially family, not
Right.
supportive?
Yeah. So when my dad told me, what are you doing? You need to do the fitness thing because it's what you're doing your whole life. Why are you going to change? I just told him, say, look, I believe in myself. Regardless of how you believe and what I should do, at the end of the day, this is my life. And my goals and aspirations are different than yours. So, and I get it. I haven't done it yet. You can't really believe in me. So that's why I think that the belief in yourself has to come before anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So when somebody has to rely on someone else's belief, I think that's almost hindering the results, if that makes sense. Like, so when it came to my dad and not really believing in what I wanted to do, I don't necessarily think he didn't believe that I could do it. I think he just thought that my path was fitness, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I knew he believed that I could make it happen. It just wasn't what he thought.
Why would you? Why would you? Yeah.
And I'm a weird person. I like to go the hardest route. That's just how I've been since working out. I just wanted to go to the hardest route. So I would say for somebody who has a family member or somebody close to them who doesn't believe in them, realize they love you, but don't make the mistake of wanting their belief be your own, because they're not going to believe in you until you actually have done what it is you say you're going to do. So you have to actually go out and make it happen. And eventually they're going to have to eat their own words and say, yep, you're right. You're right. And my dad had to do that to me whenever I had my first year and I showed him how much money I made, which I make more money than him. And he was like, wow, yeah, you're right. I was wrong. You made the right choice. And it was almost this weird motivation when I wasn't making the sales. Yeah, I wanted to do it for my family, but I was also like, I want to stick it to him.
In a loving way, yeah.
I'm literally going to make this happen, regardless of the belief or not in me.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Using that stuff for fire instead of for water on your fire to be able to like motivate you. I know that was like for me too. When I started, it was very similar. So I get that. So if you're listening and you're like, someone's just not supporting me, well, that's okay. They don't know you yet. You know you. So you know what you're capable of, and, just go out and win to help your family if that's your main thing, or to prove someone wrong or right, depending on what motivates you on the given day. Sometimes different days are different motivations you need, right? So that's really cool. And then you touched on, and I think this was great too, and you touched on where you build the referrals. You just asked the beginning. So anyone that's in sales, just ask the beginning, hey, can you do me a favor? Would you be open to, if I give you an amazing experience, which then you have to give an amazing experience. If I give you an amazing experience, would you be open to, talking to someone about what I do? Super simple. And once they say yes, they've also committed. So subconsciously, they've also committed. And I think that that's something even I can definitely work on. And I'm sure different people are listening and they're like, oh yeah, that's probably a great idea to start out and just saying, if I can could you do me a favor? And people are like, yeah, of course.
Okay. And what I would do at the end of because in roofing, it takes maybe 3 months from inspection to closing the job out. So you're with this person for 2 to 3 months. And what I always wanted to do is every time I was with this client, I always wanted to get to know them more. It wasn't always just about the project. It was getting to know them, know me. So now I'm coming from being a contractor to now being a friend, right? So I'm not looked at as a contractor, but a friend. So at the end of the whole thing, what I would do is I would have a thank you card. I would get the last check from the client, and I would hand them a thank you card. And they're like, what's this? I said, it's just a token of my appreciation for you allowing me to work with you throughout this whole process. You could have chose anybody, but you chose me, and I truly am honored and appreciate it. And in that thank you card, I write their name, everything like that, and I'm telling them I appreciate their business and allow them to work with them. But also in there, I say one thing that I heard in that 2 to 3 months. Let's say they had a son going to a certain university. Hey, I hope Jimmy has a great first semester at TCU. I know he's going to crush it. And then I would get them a gift card, probably $100, $200 to their favorite restaurant. The reason why I do a restaurant was because it's a great experience. They have probably a server. They enjoy the food, the ambiance. It's just anything that they love about it. If once they go with my gift card, they're going to think about me and what I provided. Not only the experience I provided with the construction and the process, but also now at the very ends, it's almost like a cherry on the top, but also in that thank you card, saying one thing that I remembered. It wasn't just a generic thank you card. That you know what I mean?
Yeah, I gotcha. I'm
So,
thinking of
so
ideas.
just that, I would get phone calls. I would get texts. I would have, women call me just, tearing up. Like that was so thoughtful. Just these small things. And it would just explode in my business. And it wasn't because I was doing that because I knew I was going to get something from it. That's just how I like to operate my business, is being a servant to these people. And it just came back tenfold every time I did it.
I love that. That's so good. Well, I'm sure there's lots of value in that for people that are listening. I mean, I'm thinking of ideas of how to make this work better. So appreciate it. Awesome. So in wrapping up, I know we could go forever. There's a lot of stuff here that you're talking about. It's a lot of gold. Really appreciate it. Wrapping up, we have 3 final questions, and then anything that you would like to leave the listeners with that maybe we didn't touch on. First final question is, if someone's looking for their purpose, well, everyone's always looking for their purpose, what's one sentence that you would say that could help them find it?
One purpose. I would say finding your purpose, the one sentence. I would say, what do you think you're called to do? And I think there's a lot of reflection in you. And I think when it comes to purpose, it's more of a self-reflection than it is something that you're just going to go out and find. So I think it's, what is it you want to do? Like, who do you want to serve? Why do you think you're here? Those certain things. I know it's 3 sentences, but I just think it's self-reflection and figuring out why you're here, in this journey, what we call life. Because that's how I found my purpose when it came to fitness, because I wanted to serve people. And then when I got into roofing, I was still serving people, but instead of doing it in a healthy manner, I was protecting their biggest asset and doing a makeover. So I still felt the same compelling reason to serve in my purpose.
That's cool. Yeah, that totally makes sense. Number 2, and you might have more than one, but right now, what's your favorite quote and why?
I would say, because I think of this every single day, and it's a quote from Ed, is self-confidence comes from doing what you say you're going to do. The only reason why I say that is because there's so many times in a day where you don't want to do something, that you say you're going to do something, whether it's making that phone call you told the client you would make, or making that appointment, or picking your kid up at a certain time, or saying you're going to go do something with your spouse. I think when you say you're going to commit to something and you just do it, your whole life transforms. So that's literally been in the back of my mind, kind of like my motto for this last year, was just whatever I say I'm going to do, I'm going to do. And that's who I am.
I love it. So good. Number 3 question is, what's one word or sentence you want on your gravestone?
I want to be like, sounds corny, but the most disciplined man, some cool like that.
Okay. I like that. Nothing corny about that.
Man, most disciplined man.
Yeah. I love it. That's so cool. So like I said, wrapping up, you run into someone in a coffee shop or whatever, and they're like, Mitchell, that was so much gold. Was there something that we didn't touch on that you just think people really need to hear?
I think we pretty much covered it, but just to reiterate that discipline is the greatest superpower you could literally ever have in your life. And once you can control that and conquer it, and that's who you are, and that's your definition of your being, that's when your life transforms. And that's what I realized when it came to fitness, when it came to what I'm doing now. Discipline's everything. And if you don't have that, your life is going to be so chaotic, and that's where I feel anxiety and depression can stem from. So I think discipline is it. If I could give anybody any advice, just get that down.
Get the discipline. I love that. Thank you so much for being on here, Mitchell. Really appreciate it. As always, listeners, make sure to rate, review, subscribe. Mitchell will have his information in the show notes. Feel free to reach out, follow him, all of that kind of good stuff. As always, we go out there, we change one starfish or one person's life at a time. Together, we can change the world. Thank you so much, Mitchell.
Thank you.